good evening, everyone. It is New Year's Eve 2023. So I wanted to say hello to everyone, give everybody an update on what we can expect, not tonight necessarily, although we are going to talk about that. But we're going to talk about the weather as far as tonight goes, tomorrow, New Year's Day, and really more importantly, January 2024. So this is the graphic that the National Weather Service office in Fort Worth did earlier today. And if you don't already know, if you haven't stepped outside lately, the cold front has moved through most of the Metroplex. I think if you're really south of I-20, it may be oozing in. And that's really kind of what it's doing. It's not this big, blustery cold front that kind of just blows on through. And the wind immediately becomes 20, 30 miles an hour. Although, looking at my weather station, yeah, it's about 10 miles an hour, so it's definitely picked up a little bit. So it's going to feel cold. So if you are not old like me and you're out and about tonight, then it will be cold, that's for sure. And as we get closer to midnight, hopefully I'll be able to make it to midnight. As we get closer to midnight, then it's really going to feel cold outside, probably wind chills in the 30s. So when you're leaving any festivities you might be going to, then just make sure you take your jacket. Heavier jacket, really. Just make sure, don't be shocked if you walk outside. It's really cold. Now, as far as tomorrow goes, the kind of the graphic on the right there, it is going to be blustery and chilly. Not like today, and certainly not like yesterday. I hope you had a chance to go outside yesterday, and even today. Really nice. It's probably the nicest weather we're going to see, in a pure sense, for a little bit. It's going to be cold and have periodic storm systems move through. We'll talk about that in a second this week. And then we'll also talk about the bigger picture about as far as the cold weather. So, speaking of that, so let's just look at Tuesday here. So Tuesday is our next chance for severe weather. Not severe weather. Oh, there's a Freudian slip for you. There's the next chance for rain. So we're in this El Nino pattern that I've talked about in the fall, and it's kind of playing out its course. We're going to be in this pattern at least for next week. We're going to be in this pattern where these cold fronts, little disturbances move through about every 2 or 3 days, and then you're going to see the system move in. You're going to see showers, maybe a rumble of thunder or something like that. Then the system will move out, have a couple days of nice weather. Cool, but nice weather, and then you'll have another system move in. So the first system that's going to move in is on Tuesday. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of rain with that, probably quarter to a half inch for most of us, so not as much as we saw this last time, that's for sure. And that last system we had before Christmas, we had almost 3.5 inches of rain at my house, so that was that was a pretty good soaker. So that is something that we're not going to see with this system. Like I said, some isolated thunderstorms are possible. But everything's going to move out Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. So it's going to be nice from Wednesday, Thursday. But then the next system is going to move through on Friday. And that system has a chance to produce more rain than this system that's going to move in on Tuesday. So that's something we want to watch. You might be talking about an inch of rain then. But widespread, it's going to be cool. Temperature's probably going to be in the 40s on Friday, so that's not going to be fun. That's for sure. But again, it's January, and when it rains, you have that system move in January. That's just kind of what it is. It's just kind of, cloudy, crappy, and rainy and miserable outside. So that's not that unusual. So that's kind of the short-term look at things. And as we get into the next week in January, the second week in January, which starts the 8th, that's when things get a little interesting. All right, so I wanted to show you this, and I'll show you several different graphics here. So this is, this is a GFS model, and this is a temperature map for, in this case, it's for Saturday, January 13th. So you see this high temperature forecast for Dallas-Fort Worth, and hopefully you can see it. Matter of fact, I think I can use my fancy tools and draw on this. Yeah, that's DFW right there, so that's 28. For a high, that's that's not very warm for us. Just in case you were wondering, the normal high temperature for January 13th is about 55 degrees, so that would be quite a departure from normal. Now, that's a GFS. So if you go to the Canadian model, it gets a little more interesting, and we'll zoom in on this. Get you. Well, can we do? Yeah. Nope, can't. Okay, there's not a regional map for this one. Okay, that's what I thought. All right. So again, for that time period, you see 22 degrees. So they're trending a little bit colder. I was trying to see if I go back to 21. Yeah. So on Wednesday, the 10th, this model, the Canadian model, has it the temperature at DFW at 21. So as you can tell, that's pretty chilly for even for January standards. I'm sorry, that was not the Canadian model. This is the Canadian model, and I think I can zoom in regionally here. Yep, I can. And okay, so it doesn't go quite that far out. So this is Monday. So again, Monday you can see temperatures in the 40s. So let's try the UK model. Yeah, they don't go out that far. And that's not what I want either. I don't think any of these other models are going to go out. Let's see that far. The ensembles, I think they will. All right, so let's see if I can find that's Saturday. It's still Saturday. Okay, that is Friday. Let's try find Wednesday here. There we go. And they're trending, yeah. It's Thursday. All right, so their coldest. The ensemble has us coldest at. Sorry, going back and forth real fast. At 33. So, it's not something that's terribly concerning from a deep cold snap or anything like that. It's just going to be a lot colder, relatively speaking, than it has been this past couple weeks. The week between this past week between Christmas and New Year's, as you remember, was very nice for the most part. And we had these cold front intrusions, but they were all dry. And so that's why the same type pattern didn't have a lot of moisture to work with, obviously. But of course, this next week's going to have the same type pattern where you're going to have these disturbances move through every 2, 3, 4, 5 days. But then we have a lot more moisture to work with. And as we get into this colder pattern in January, especially the middle part of January, that's where the moisture might get interesting. I don't foresee right now, I don't foresee a lot of winter precipitation for us, but let's find out what we got. All right, so this is the precipitation type model, and this is it just fell on Wednesday the 10th, and you don't see a lot. Go back a little bit. So you see, oops. All right, so this is Tuesday. So you see this low pressure system out in New Mexico is going to move our way. Now, what we're thinking is you can kind of look at these individual frames. The system wants to kind of meander around in Mexico, and then it's going to move on out. So this particular model doesn't really call for a lot of precipitation in that scenario. Let's see what the GFS calls for precipitation-wise. Because I want to say, what is that? That's Thursday. We'll back that up a little bit. Again, I haven't seen any. It's a pretty big storm system there in Iowa, that's for sure. So this is Wednesday the 10th. Yeah, let's see. So this is what's interesting about this particular model because I think I can make this a little bigger. Yep. So right now, that's the low pressure. That's 978 millibars. That's a pretty low pressure for a mid-latitude cyclone, as we call them. And so it's something that it's pretty intense, as you can see at that with that track of the low. The snow would be mainly in the Panhandle up into Panhandle, Texas, and Oklahoma, and then up into western Kansas. Now, not saying it's going to do that, but if this were to track this way, or probably a better way to do it would be if the low that's here a couple of days before that, if it were to go like this, that's when it would get really, really interesting. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but again, this is more than a week out. These models do change. Now they're usually pretty good in a general sense, but I'm just saying. So this is again, this is Wednesday the 10th, so not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. So it's just something to keep in mind as far as it's the weather that the weather pattern that we are in. That is for sure in January. Yeah, I did want to talk about this real quick. So this was interesting, and this is something that the National Weather Service office in Fort Worth put out a couple of days ago, I think originally. So the 2023 climate tidbits. This is the last night of the 2023 year, and so it's me being a weather geek, it's nice to look back on the weather we had in North Texas in 2023, and it was definitely quite the wild ride. I will definitely say that. Probably wilder than I wanted it to be because it didn't rain a whole lot during the summer, and that always causes a lot of problems. But just hit the highlights here. You saw the 113 in Mineral Wells. Probably one of the more interesting headlines for me as a weather geek is thank you, Jeff Sorensen. Appreciate that. You're welcome. Was the all-time record high dew point tide, and that was 80 degrees, and that was tied back in June. And you think about that, and the dew point, of course, is a measure of moisture in the atmosphere. The relative humidity is a little different in the sense it measures moisture, but it's relative to the temperature. To whereas a dew point just is the temperature it takes to if the temperature and the dew point are the same, that's when you get fog. In a rough sense. And so when you have 80-degree dew point, that is about as humid as it gets around here, unless you've been to the beach. And then of course you can see dew points in the mid 80s at the beach, in the Gulf Coast. But so that was interesting. Did it twice on June 15th and June 21st. Now on the other end of the scale, in our cold snap last January, 17 degrees was the coldest in North Texas. That was at Eastland, Texas. Of course, had a lot of ice in Central Texas in February. Not so much for us. Had a little bit. And then, so this is another interesting tidbit that I find with what varies around North Texas is our precipitation. And, I think most of you that have lived here your whole life know that the further west you go, the less it rains, and the further east you go, the more it rains in general. So Breckenridge, they got 21 inches, almost 22 inches, well, 21.47 inches for the whole year, which is about 8 inches below their normal. Excuse me. Now, on the flip side, on the other side of the North Texas, Cooper Dam at Cooper Lake, 56.65, which is actually about almost 11 inches above their normal. So you can see that 21 inches on the western side of western side of North Texas and 56. So that's over a 30 inch difference, which is crazy because if you think about it, DFW Airport, their normal rainfall in a year is around 31, 32 inches a year. So the difference between the two is what DFW would get in a whole year. So it's a little interesting tidbit there. And unfortunately for the people in Sanger, we did have a new regional record for the size hailstone, 5.9 inches, almost 6-inch hail. Now, you think about that. Now, luckily, there wasn't a ton of those size hailstones falling, but still, obviously, there were really big ones around it. The Great Wiley hailstorm of 2016, those were mostly 4.5-inch hailstones. So if you could just, as bad as that was, and it was bad, you can just imagine add 2 inches in diameter to that, and that's what fell in Sanger this summer. or this spring, I should say. So that is one big hailstone, that is for sure. So in summary, it's this: it's cold fronts come through. The wind's going to pick up gradually tonight, and then go bottom out in the low 30s tonight, tomorrow morning. Breezy, temperatures in the 50s, much colder than it has been the last couple of days. I say much colder. Actually, not technically much. It's going to feel a lot colder. And then we're going to have rain chances on Tuesday, and then again on Friday. And then the second week in January is when it gets cold. Not anything brutally cold, but just, below normal, that's for sure. Not any big snow chances, anything like that. Frozen precipitation. It's just something that if the systems and low pressure system works out, or just kind of, varies a little bit from its forecasted track, then you never know. That would be the second week in, actually, I guess it'd be second week in January. I was thinking third, but second week in January. So anyway, all right, with that, as always, I'm watching the weather so you don't have to. Hope everyone has a wonderful New Year's Eve, a happy New Year's 2024, and we will talk to you soon.